Well, good afternoon from Lexington, Kentucky, and presumably kitchen tables and sofas all across America. My name is Sean Sloan, Senior Policy Analyst at the Council of State Governments National Headquarters here in Lexington. But we are, of course, not in the office again this week so that we can shelter in place and practice social distancing as the coronavirus pandemic continues. Today, we're going to be talking about something that has become a much bigger part of many of our lives during this pandemic, using technology platforms to stay connected and engaged with our coworkers, with our customers, with our members, and even with friends and family in other places. Lots of folks in government and business are using these tools as well to maintain continuity, make key decisions, and even accomplish projects during this challenging time. So I want to first introduce our partner in putting this webinar together, the Consumer Technology Association, a valued CSG associate. We have joining us virtually Nathan Trail, CTA's Director of Policy and State Legislative Affairs. He's going to tell us more about CTA and how technology is helping many folks stay connected these days, and introduce us to several folks from CTA member companies who are helping to make all of that possible. Nathan, thank you so much for joining us and for putting this great panel together.
Thank you so much, Sean, and thank you everyone for joining us today. I really want to send a special thank you to CSG for hosting. Sean said, my name is Nathan Trail, and I'm the Director of Technology Policy and State Legislative Affairs at the Consumer Technology Association. I know I've worked with some of you before, but those who I haven't, CTA is North America's largest technology trade association. Our members are the world's leading innovators, which range from small businesses and startups to some of the world's best known brands, all of which help to support more than 18 million American jobs. CTA also produces and owns CES, which is the largest and most influential tech event on the planet. We thought it would be helpful to host this webinar today along with CSG, because I'm sure all of you are receiving about 50 different COVID-19 emails a day and different pieces of information, and even more requests about what's needed from you. But we wanted to take the time to be a resource and to show you how technology can help you do your job effectively as a legislator, even during quarantine, where you can't just easily communicate with your staff or constituents like you normally would. We've all had to adapt to this situation, and we want to show you how technology can help with that. And this is also a time where I think we're all made very much aware of how necessary technology is in keeping businesses and governments running, and more importantly, in keeping us all connected. Virtual care, for example, is providing medical care to people without the need to travel to the doctor's office. Telework is keeping businesses operational. Governments and government officials can quickly and effectively share information with constituents through social media platforms and different mailing services. We're all staying entertained and sane through streaming entertainment services while we're all at home, and delivery platforms are delivering much needed household supplies and keeping local businesses afloat. CTA and our members are very much committed to being a resource during this time, and we have 3 outstanding CTA members on today who will give an overview of how their technologies can help during COVID-19. So we'll be giving an overview of several different technologies and going over a lot of information, and we'll have a Q&A section at the end. But if you have any follow-up questions afterwards or have any ideas later on based on what we discussed, please feel free to reach out to me or any of us at any time. Like I said, we really are here to be a resource. So first we'll have Nadir from AT&T, who will give an overview of how AT&T's IoT and 5G technologies can help keep legislators and the public connected during COVID-19. Then we'll have Jeff Brown from Google, who will show how Google's easy-to-use productivity apps and cloud-based collaboration can be used during quarantine. Then we'll have Ximena Hartsock from Phone to Action, who will show how their platform can help stay connected with constituents and the broader public. Again, thank you all so much for being on. Thank you to CSG and to our panelists. I'm very much looking forward to the webinar. And with that, I'll pass it over to Joel, who I think will kick it over to Nadir to get us started. Thanks again.
Yeah, so Nadir's up first, and just a reminder that if folks do have questions for any of our panelists today, they can enter a question in the question box on the GoToWebinar interface. Nadir, take it away.
Great, thank you. So good morning, folks. My name is Nadir Khan. I'm with AT&T. looking forward to spending a few minutes here with you talking about how some of our advanced mobility solutions can help legislators and citizens around the country during this pandemic. So I have to apologize ahead of time. I'm calling to you from my home office in Austin, Texas. It's a smaller room where I have a canine partner who's not well, so he's here with me in case he gives us some background noise. I'm going to apologize ahead of time. Anyway, so my intent here is to take about 15 minutes to walk through the solutions, some of the initiatives that AT&T is working on, and I'll first cover at a high level what AT&T is doing to make sure that our network is there to respond to you when you need it. So I'll take a couple of minutes talking about that, and then I'll talk a little bit about some scenarios that we're seeing play out today across state government, local government, federal government as well, and then where we've been able to step in and help them. And then I'll dive into some of the specific product categories that we, as a systems integrator, have been able to deliver to the marketplace as part of our disaster recovery and business continuity strategy. And then I'm going to double click just into a couple of specific solutions that we have seen a lot of interest in inbound from your state governments, from your cities, from your constituents around the country. So that's what my plan is, and hopefully I can get that done in about 15 minutes. Looking forward to any questions, obviously, that you might have at the end. When it comes to preparing for business continuity, we're constantly perfecting our process, obviously. So I want to just take a moment and talk about what we're doing in this space. So we've got a little over $650 million invested in the U.S. specifically to make sure our various networks, wireline, wireless, 4G LTE, 3G even now, and as well as 5G are up and running from a voice and data perspective for you when you need it. Additionally, making sure that that we can support the FirstNet network, which was designed specifically for public safety by public safety. We're the administrator of the network, so we're proud to be able to do that, and making sure that that's up and running for our first responders when they need it. So that's a big piece of our commitment on a continuous basis. We have over 150 people that are dedicated specifically to business continuity and disaster recovery, and which are more. We have more than that, but that's approximately 150 people that are dedicated to it. We obviously monitor and maintain our network 24/7 through our global network operations center, which is throughout the country in a few different spots. If you haven't had an opportunity to visit our GNOC, I highly recommend it. Get in touch with your local AT&T rep or myself, and we can certainly make that available to you. And then we've dedicated over 150,000 hours this year alone to recovery exercises. So we're very serious about disaster recovery, business continuity, and will continue to be so. Apart from this, we obviously are a media corporation. As owners of Time Warner now, we're pleased to announce that we've made HBO streaming available to citizens and constituents around the country. Whoever wants the app can go stream HBO services from pretty much any device you've got. So apart from being dead serious about making sure that businesses and state governments are up and running, we also want to make sure that we provide the necessary entertainment options for people as they shelter in place. Carrying on to the next slide. Yeah, so we've designed our business continuity services across in a time like this across three specific verticals, product verticals. So for teleworkers, we have a number of solutions. We have a number of solutions for state, local government as they need to communicate and collaborate. And then obviously when it comes to mobilization of various types of resources and assets, we bring that to bear as well across the federal space, the local education space, as well as state local. So some of the I'll walk into detail over the next few slides in some of these solutions. So smartphones, laptops, tablets, obviously, FirstNet IoT connectivity and SIM management. That's our Internet of Things platform that was designed specifically for first responders, and they're utilizing it today to make sure that ambulances and police cars, as well as federal emergency vehicles, have the connectivity when they need it. And then when it comes to the communicate and collaborate product set, there's a number of solutions that I'll dive into, including messaging solutions, and then conferencing solutions that we support from a number of our different partners. And I'll walk through that. And then I'll talk a little bit about some of our asset tracking solutions that are being utilized to track all sorts of assets, including ventilators as they need to be transported around the country to make sure that they're when people need them. So I'll talk a little bit about some of those services over the next few minutes. Okay, let me dive into the teleworker and then how we're supporting the teleworker as people have shifted to, excuse me, work from home arrangements, and will likely continue to do so for through the summer and probably into the fall as well. So goes without saying, as a carrier, we do supply smartphones, tablets, and other devices. That's part of our mobility solutions portfolio that enable your workers to be able to voice, text, get access to the internet, and other types of data devices to work from anytime, anywhere. So we continue to make that available, and you could get that as a consumer, obviously, at any one of AT&T's 2,000 plus retail stores, including as well as being able to engage some of the account teams that are there to support our state legislatures around the country. I talked a little bit about FirstNet IoT connectivity and SIM management. This was, at a high level, an IoT platform that was developed specifically, like I mentioned earlier, for first responders. So to make sure, as you've got hundreds, if not thousands, of machines that are being deployed, being able to manage the location of those assets, as well as the data connectivity for those assets, is a critical component of business continuity services in state local government. And we're able to provide an IoT platform that allows governments to be able to pay for the data that they actually use, as opposed to guessing how much data they might need to buy from us as a carrier. So if you've got a sheriff's department that only utilizes, 1 gig of data and probably doesn't go up above that, there's no reason why they need to pay $20, $30, $40 in larger data pool plans just because they suspect that you might have a spike. Because the billing platform is designed in a way where if that sheriff's car, if that data device now needs to consume 2 gigabytes of data or 5 gigabytes of data on our platform, on our network, that the IoT billing platform will then ladder them up to the 2 gigs, the 5 gigs, the 10 gigs, and then at the end of the billing cycle, bring them down, so they don't have to worry about things like overages, and still get access to the network that they require. And that could be our FirstNet network, again, which is designed specifically for first responders, or you could utilize our consumer network, our 4G LTE and then 5G network as well on that control center IoT platform. This is designed specifically, again, for data devices. Sort of carrying on, when it comes to providing device management, this is important as more and more corporations and state local government have to deploy mobile devices, being able to manage those devices remotely to make sure that you've got passwords and PINs and security on those devices managed effectively, and still allow workers to be able to do their job remotely. Being able to do that with a management platform, we have a number of different partners in this space that we're very proud to work with, partners like AirWatch, partners like MobileIron, partners like Cisco, and IBM that we utilize to provide mobile device management services. Mobility remote access. This is we're able to provide employees with remote access to VPN. This is one of the most challenging things we've seen as a carrier. That as you've had organizations that typically would have to have support, for 10, 15, maybe 20 or 30% of their workforce to work remotely and need access to a virtual private network, a VPN. Now, all of a sudden, they've had 80, 90, more than that in some cases of their workforce have to connect into that VPN. So quickly being able to expand out access to VPN services of multiple kinds, whether it's on a mobile device or it's on a laptop or it's on a PC, and being able to do that so that employees can access those VPN services so that they're securely tied into your local networks is a critical component of what we've seen a high demand for as we've responded to inbound requests. AT&T Wireless Broadband, this obviously is a network alternative for business critical applications. So you can buy Ethernet services obviously from AT&T for wireline connectivity into your home office. But if you need access to the wireless broadband and still tie that back into your local area network, so that again you're securing the traffic on our broadband network, we can enable that with this specific offering. And I talked a little bit about mobile remote access as well, and being able to provide VPNs for mobile devices or PCs or laptops or tablets, etc. And that could all be packaged up so that it's easier to deploy. Communicate and collaborate. And I'm going to fly through these because I want to be respectful of the rest of my colleagues' time here. So we have messaging solutions. These are critical in times like this, when you need to be able to broadcast messages to hundreds of thousands of people, or you need to be able to focus in and send a message to a very finite group of users. Maybe it's first responders, maybe it's emergency health workers, and you want to be able to utilize a platform that does all of that. You need to send a message out to a few 100,000 people or 1 million or more people. You could do that using the messaging platforms, or if you need to get a very finite message out with the ability to text back and forth and then encapsulate important information and package that into a text message, we offer a number of different platforms that will do that. We talked about mobility solutions. I'll talk a little bit more about some of the remote connectivity solutions for communicating and collaborating. So we offer what's called AT&T Office at Hand. It's a cloud-based voice collaboration solution that allows you to replicate a lot of what you're used to from your office phone on your mobile device or your iPad, for example. So that's an offering certainly that makes sense here. And then we've got a number of partners, including WebEx and Zoom, and AT&T event conferencing that allow things obviously like cloud-based video communication services, web conferencing, and webcasting solutions. Those are all certainly a part of what you can ask your local AT&T account manager for help with. Secure documentation, being able to share documents and files over the web and still comply again with the requirements that you need as a local government, is something we can provide through another partner of ours called Box. And it's available to a lot of our government contracts on existing government contracts. So no need to go out there and necessarily put anything out to bid if you can utilize a acceptable current contract like GSA or NASPO or a state contract. So I want to mention that. Mobilization, asset management, AT&T fleet management, and enhanced push-to-talk. These are all part of our mobile field solutions that a lot of government customers utilize from us on a daily basis. These include things like the ability to provide walkie-talkie communication on a smartphone and tie that into radio handsets that are currently deployed for first responders. So you can have a sheriff's department that has, might have smartphones deployed, as well as some more expensive radios like a Motorola or a Harris radio system, and being able to tie the voice communication of both those types of voice platforms into one single device and from one single place. That's what our push-to-talk, enhanced push-to-talk service provides. Fleet management, being able to manage your fleet to make sure it's there when your constituents need them, in the right place at the right time with the right type of gas mileage, making sure that the battery's charged, making sure that driver behavior is being monitored to a degree so that they're safe, so that they're wearing a mask, for example, or when they're driving about. That could all be monitored through some of the fleet management options. And then when it comes to asset management, I'll talk a little bit more on the next slide. Again, in the interest of time, sort of flying through it, but we've seen a lot of interest, specifically from state, local, and federal government, for the condition monitoring of assets in transit, specifically high-value assets like respirators. When you've got hospital systems that are in different parts of a state or different parts of the country, and they need to be able to tell where those ventilators are and be able to quickly slap on a tracker that allows you to track where that ventilator is, and then scale some of those services that you might need. So what condition is the vent? What is the humidity around that area? What is the temperature around this specific equipment? Where is it specifically in a geographical location? Has it moved out of a geofenced zone that I need to be aware of, and that somebody needs to be alerted to, so that you can utilize very critical assets and do it in the right place at the right time. So that's certainly something that we can help with. And the batteries on these things are ruggedized. The devices themselves are ruggedized. They're IP66 certified, so you can wash them down, and the batteries in them will last in certain cases for up to 5 years. You don't have to worry about replacing batteries on devices like this. So we've come a long way when it comes to being able to provide asset tracking. Video thermal analytics. In some cases, this is proving to be, in some parts of the world, a highly effective solution to be able to monitor the temperature of folks as they enter into buildings and public spaces. And that is something we're proud to be able to support here in the United States for a number of our customers. So we've got an access camera that will provide things like perimeter and intrusion detection. It'll provide object temperature, and you can have a number of different temperature settings set up in the solution so that you're alerted if somebody's temperature that walks into a building is 99.x that you decide is an important alerting mechanism, then that alert goes to the folks that need to know, and then partially prevent that person from walking into a building, into a public spot. Maybe you redirect them to a certain area. And we're very, very conscious of privacy concerns when it comes to video thermal analytics. So giving state, local government these tools, along with some of the privacy tools that go along with it, so that you're not actually seeing a person's face. All you're seeing is the ability to track what temperature folks are when they walk into a building. This is available to most of our state, local governments on a lot of the current contracts that are available to federal government, state government, like I mentioned, NASPO, state government contracts, as well as GSA. And we've made it easy for folks or customers of ours that need to step into some of these asset tracking solutions or thermal solutions to be able to do it at a price point that is conscious of some of these times that we're in. So it makes it easy for folks to start off utilizing some of these technologies. I was told at the front end of this that I'd have about 15 minutes. I think I'm right at the bottom end of that, so I just wanted to leave you with a couple of contacts. Michelle Richards was my boss for AT&T's IoT Advanced Mobility Solutions team. Her email's there. One of my colleagues, Ron Singletary, you've got his email there as well. You can certainly reach back out to me. But this deck will be provided out to anybody who's got additional questions at the end of this conference. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. And this is Sean Sloan again at CSG. Just a reminder, folks, that if you do have a question for any of our panelists today, there is a pull-down question box in the GoToWebinar interface. So you click on that and you can enter a question for any of our folks, and we will have them answer that at the end of the program today. And so I guess next we have Phone to Action up next.
Thanks, Council of State Governments and CTA for the invitation. And thanks to the members attending today. My name is Ximena Hartsock, and I am the founder of Phone to Action. Phone to Action is a technology company based in the DC area. And we build tools that organizations use across the country and abroad to engage citizens and connect them with the lawmakers to provide analytics on how people across the country are engaging today with each other and with their authorities, and for corporate responsibility. Today, I am going to talk about 3 factors that I find that are positioning us in a very particular moment where people are excited and eager to engage with their officials. And I think it's also the other way around. The first one is technology being everywhere and accessible to everyone. The second one, what I call the rise of this new citizen, which is a new type of constituent today, powered by technology and by their personal stories. And the third one, the COVID effect, because these first two factors, technology everywhere and the new citizen, have been around for the past year or so. But the last one, the COVID effect, it kind of changed everything and accelerated the process of connecting people with lawmakers, modernizing also the way participation occurs, and taking things to the next level. So the first one, technology being everywhere. The digital landscape in the US position us, and we heard from AT&T and we'll hear soon from Google, in a very particular way. Almost everyone in the US has a phone of any kind, and digital natives, most of them have a smartphone. 50% of US adults able to own a device have a tablet. And there are other, sometimes there is an overlap at home, having a tablet, having a computer, but also there are gamers, there are teenagers in our homes that have all the other devices they use to engage too, like PlayStations and Xbox and tools of that kind. Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube have been traditionally they have been the traditional ways for people to engage with each other and to share. And the numbers keep growing up. 169 million users, monthly numbers recorded of 218 million lately visitors after COVID, 81 million monthly users for Twitter, and 79 million of Americans in YouTube, and probably the number is also growing. In the US, that is, and in the world, that is a very important trend around the use of messaging apps. And these are the apps that we use to connect from our cell phones with our friends and family. The one leading in the US is Facebook Messenger with 107 million, WhatsApp with 26 million a month, Messenger by Google, Google Hangouts, and then Telegram. And these numbers, these are just monthly users. I mean, there is a very large number that I could have shown here that shows what people are messaging every day, the number of posts that they're putting there, the interactions go in the billions. And while some of these apps may not be familiar to you, I wanted to show you the trends worldwide, because the messenger apps are being used across the globe to organize. People are using them for advocacy. In fact, some of the last protests that you saw in October of last year across the world were powered by some of these apps. WhatsApp leads, even though in the US is not the leading messenger, in the world is, with 1.5 billion users monthly. And there are others like Telegram, Line, Signal that may not be very familiar for us, but they are growing rapidly abroad. I couldn't talk about technology today to connect without talking about text message. This is probably one of the oldest technologies that are out there, but extremely powerful today. Most people, because 96% of people in the US have a cell phone of some kind, this is the technology that they use to connect when they don't have a smartphone. Is the number one, the most preferred use of communication, but also because it's used in the US, there are a lot of rules around marketing using text message. It's used among friends, it's used among family members, people opt in for it. And so 90% of the texts are read, and people tend to engage very much and not unsubscribe from text message. So all of the technology that is out there that now with COVID we are using every day, we have to pair it with also something that we have found at Phone to Action through the research that we do and our observations in the past years of advocacy and the way that people engage with the rise of a new type of constituent. This constituent is hyper-informed. We're getting our information from everywhere. Doesn't mean that all the information we get is true, but we're getting a ton of information. We're digital. Even the generation of over 90, which is one of the generational groups that is increasing dramatically right now, digital is important to them. All of the people, everyone that use their cell phone for anything, every single one of those people, they have a story to share. And in all of the rallies and all of the events that people may do outside, mobilizations around the world, protests, you can see the difference. Like today, people are not coming with one big sign that represents everyone. Not even people that belong to unions do that. People come with their own little signs, their own little posters, because their personal story leads the way in the way that they advocate about something. The new citizen also questions the establishment. The new citizen doesn't just elect an official, actually will hold that official accountable for the number of years that official is in office. And this has changed a little bit the game, because paired with technology, the new citizen is vocal and will put their issues out there in the public in ways that sometimes are not the way that we would like to see them. And because of the impulsive nature that technology empower us with, we have our cell phones in our hands. We can just share really quickly on Facebook. If something makes us really upset, we put it everywhere. We tweet about it. If we like something, we share it. This outspoken aspect of the new citizen and the connectivity that we all have makes this new constitution, especially a position today with COVID, to have a very different relationship with lawmakers. The third aspect that I wanted to talk about is the COVID effect. So we have technology, we have the new constituent, and the COVID effect accelerated everything. So what is doing the COVID effect? At Front Row Action, our technology is used for advocacy. Organizations like the American Nurses Association or CTA or American Restaurants Association, they use it to power their members with technology that they can use to connect with officials on the phone, on social media, on email, etc. We used to get around 20,000 actions per day. Now we are on 52,000 actions in average. On March 21st, we had 400,000 actions in only one day, only in 4 hours. And it's everywhere. In this map, you see a closed legislative sessions and open, and the size of the bubble shows the level of activity, and you see orange and blue are equally kind of distributed in terms of energy. People are taking action everywhere in the US, regardless of the legislators being open or not. In Michigan, in fact, just in 1 week, we saw a 13% increase of people taking action, and Florida, which was closed, more than double the activity. So this new citizen plus the COVID effect have a very unique set of possibilities today, where every person in the US, as well as every state leader, every lawmaker is they're able to connect in ways they never did before. I think COVID in a certain way with technology have equalized our lives as an equalizer, because we're all at home. We're generally all, we all need to live in different ways than before. We're all in a little bit of a passive mode that makes us be more active. This is a really new and particular situation that we're in. So what can we do with that? So here are a few examples that I prepared here for state leaders to really take advantage of the technology today and this moment that we're in with a new citizen and COVID. So first, use different channels to communicate with constituents, because your constituents, we may think we know them, but they're really everywhere. When we look at our data, people take action from all kinds of browsers, all kinds of devices. Most people do it on a cell phone, but you know, Safari is normally the browser they use. But we see also people using a PlayStation to take action. And so I think not making assumptions of where your constituents are is the #1 rule. Email is something you always want to do, because not everyone reads email, but some people still read email. Website. Keep your website, make it mobile responsive, make sure that information is there. Facebook, chat messengers are also new ways to connect. All the virtual events like this one, Twitter chats, Facebook Lives, and Reddit. In Reddit, you're gonna find a different audience, and the AMAs in Reddit are very interesting. And you will find it also that your constituents, probably your reach to your constituents is going to be maybe a lot more busy, but it's going to be a lot deeper. So I will strongly encourage you to try any of these things. For teletown halls, my suggestion is to do them at different times, because the data that exists for the most part on teletown halls before COVID doesn't apply now. So now, you know, sometimes nap time for parents of young children is a better time than you know what normally would have been, like 7 p.m. Etc. And weekends are different now. Like almost every day feels the same. And so looking at different times and seeing what works for you is a recommendation. Text message via short code, carriers like AT&T or providers like Phone to Action have them. You can get one for 1 year. They're not expensive, and you can own many words in that short code and use it. More and more leaders are using those, especially in election time. But it's a very good way if you have, if you want people to connect with you, they can remember that, they can memorize that, and connect with you via text message. Why try so many channels? Because your constituents share what they like with their friends and family if they like the message. We found that 70% of advocates in Phone to Action, they're new. And so 30% of people are taking action, and 70% are coming from those 30% that are taking action because they post that take action, that call to action somewhere. And we saw 450% of increase in social shares in Facebook. So we believe there is a correlation between the folks that are looking at these things and they're sharing them out there. And because of the over-information, people may not believe everything they read and see, but they believe what they hear from the associations they belong to, their nonprofits, their trade associations, and they trust that information. So my advice too is to partner with them and do events of this type or other types to connect with your constituents in different ways. Organizations are embracing digital engagement. They are asking their members to share personal stories. You're seeing a lot of the nurses' stories and restaurant stories in TV because people are putting them out there in public, and many times the associations are sharing those stories with lawmakers because the stories tell the nuance that exists behind an issue. A story clarifies that nuance, and that's why also organizations that are sharing this, they're hearing the pressure and the urgency from the memberships, and they're putting that pressure back on lawmakers. So embrace your constituents' personal stories. You can use them also at times when you want to make a point about something. You're representing them, and elevating their story, you know, is a way to show them how much you care about them. And what we found in Phone to Action is most people share data, calls to action, and personal stories. So if they like any of those three, they will put them somewhere. So, you know, if you present an information, try to have a call to action or story or some statistic about it. Personal stories too are a way to fight fake news, because personal stories, unless they're created by someone, for the most part, are real. Another tool that you can use are virtual assistants. Phone to Action has this, but there are other technologies that also have them. If you have a website or you have a Facebook page, you can put a virtual assistant at the corner, and this chatbot is like an extension of yourself when you're not there, that it will reply back and interact with the visitors and engage them and give them information while you're not there. You automate them, they're powered by artificial intelligence, but they're very easy to install, and it's one more way to interact with people. Maybe the volume won't be as high, but you will be surprised with the type of interactions that you get there. Timing matters. We found that today, in the past, we saw Tuesdays as the most effective days for engagement with folks everywhere, but now Thursdays are winning, followed by Tuesdays and followed by Saturday morning. It seems like people like to read their newsletters on Saturday morning with their coffee. We are sending our newsletter in the morning because that's the day that is working out the most for us. But when we need engagement, we need quick engagement, 7 p.m. is working, and Thursdays anytime after 1 p.m. Replace any text as you can with some type of graphic, because it's easier to digest. So this one is in Spanish. It says COVID-19, but 2020. So 20 seconds to wash your hands, 2 meters of distance between each other, and 0 excuses. And so it's easy. This is a city council member, and it's an easy way for people to, I think it's clever, it's funny, and it's easy to remember. Senator Mark Warner is adding a survey at the bottom of his newsletters, and even when not a lot of people may answer this survey, even if you get a few people every time, over time, you will get a lot of good information. So adding a survey at the bottom of your newsletters may be helpful. And you know, we may think that we're oversaturating people with webinars and Facebook Lives and all of this, but we're not. People want this, they want it more, and not everybody sees everything. So you don't want to think, okay, we just did one, we shouldn't do another, because very likely new people will see that. And at the minimum, your constituents are gonna say, yes, my state leader is present, is doing this, is busy, is working, is keeping me engaged. And if they like it, they'll share it. And then other people that didn't see it will see that, and you amplify. And then make it fun, and this is also an opportunity for lawmakers to be to show their human side. If one of you is a guitar player or a singer or a former teacher, share that online. Several lawmakers are doing that, and it's working out, becoming, you know, something that people like to see. This is, you know, I think we are all doing a lot of web conferencing. There are Google Hangouts, there are all types of web conferences available out there. Use one that is safe. You want to make sure with that on that, but do them because they're fun, and people are today. I think 2 months ago, if you ask constituents to join web conferences, they will think that they may not understand that. But today, grandmothers, everybody's joining conferences with their grandkids. So people today are stretching in the way they use technology, and they're joining, you know, they're joining them. And you can be very creative in the way that you use them. So to recap, the new citizen wants to be engaged. So don't feel that you are saturating them or you're overreaching. They want to hear from you. And COVID is accelerating the way people are using technology. Like even my mother, like, you didn't know how to use the video function of WhatsApp. Now she knows how to do, because we're forced to learn things that we were not comfortable learning before. I think what happens in times of crisis like a pandemic, we stretch, we reach new heights, all of our survival skills come out. And digital right now is these are the tools that everyone or most people have available, and they want to learn them so they can use them to the largest possible extent. And this is accelerating tremendously the way that people are connecting with lawmakers, because, you know, they have them, they know how to use them now, but they also want to know, and they want to hear from their lawmakers. Organizations are doing this, so partner more and more with nonprofits and trade associations and groups of that kind. Try messenger apps. It's very easy to create a group in WhatsApp. If you want me to show you, I have my information at the bottom of or connect with the Council of State Governments or CTA. Happy to show you how to create these groups and how they work. Make the post visual. Ask what matters to your constituents. Don't think that they don't want to answer. I think today everybody wants to share. Do Q&A sessions. It's better that they hear them directly from you. Keep them over-informed because somebody's going to inform them anyway. Show your human side. Host or join web conferences and get creative and stretch. Like stretch meaning this is the time we're all trying something a little bit different, a little bit new. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Ximena. This is Sean Sloan again from CSG. We have up next Jeff Brown from Google. Just a reminder to folks, they can send us a question by entering it in the pull down questions box on the GoToWebinar interface. Jeff, take it away.
Great, thank you. And as my colleague said, we really do appreciate your time. Taking the hour out at these times is a lot, so thank you also. Again, my name is Jeff Brown. I'm a strategic business executive for Google. My focus is on the collaboration solutions. What I'd like to do today is I just wanted to stay high level here and just tell you what Google is doing in response to COVID, and then we'll dive into the collaboration tools here. So, first, if you're using Google search, and thank you, by just simply typing COVID-19, Google is now working and has been working with WHO and CDC and organizations like that. Depending on where the city and county you live, you're going to start to see those different line items propagated for where you live and the different responses and testing and those things, as well as YouTube. So same thing, if you were to type COVID in YouTube, it's going to take you to that information panel. And it's just, the alphabet, aka Google's way of really just trying to consolidate that data and putting it, and making the information relevant. Just recently, you can see at the bottom, we've now put together what are these mobility reports. And so if you're to go to that link by the US now, we actually do by city and county. And so you can download that. And this is not made to make health decisions by any means. What this is used for is, if you think about, retail, if you think about, what's happening in parks, grocery stores and those things, it's giving you the metrics. And this is really going to help with, as we hopefully recover here shortly, the social distancing and how we, potentially as a legislator, you can look at your different departments in the state and figuring out how to get people in and out of these different public offices in the right manner. So the next thing is just there's a lot of different things that organizations like Google are doing. This is just trying to give you a snapshot here from almost a month ago where there's a lot of response. This one in particular is around the small businesses. And so in your community, whether it's grants for advertising, whether it's maps, there's a whole plethora of things that Google is trying to do to help these small and government agencies not only just like be heard, but actually have people find them in the relevant manners. So I just want to make sure people have an idea of, again, a high level of grants that Google is doing. All right, so like myself and probably many of you, you're probably at home and maybe you have grandkids, kids, nieces, nephews. And so these links here they're awesome. And so, if you look at how you do distance learning, and so again, if you have kids, maybe they're using G Suite for education, maybe you've heard of Google Classroom. What that's showing you is the platform that Google has provided for teachers. And we're seeing a lot of not just school districts, but teachers being very innovative and how they're getting the material out to their students and how they're grading them, using the video conferencing tools we're going to touch on here in a second. And the bottom one is just working from remote. Maybe you need to train yourself how to use those video tools like we've been talking about. Just a wealth of information there. So just want to make sure people had an idea, just remote distance learning and literally working from home, what tools are available. On the research side, this is something that's publicly available through the Johns Hopkins. This is moving over to the Google Cloud Platform side. So there's a wealth of data that research organizations, universities are trying to look at as they massage this data, so to speak, and again, trying to recover out of this and ultimately using these data sets to make some future decisions. Great. So I'm going to jump in now into some tools that as legislators you might be interested in. Again, probably said it 10 times here, but you are remote. How can you get your meetings done? How can you get messages out to your constituents? As mentioned earlier, one of the first things I do to mention is the security. It's been a topic of conversation here recently, and so what you're seeing here is when you're doing a Google Meet, it used to be called Google Hangouts, it's called Google Meet. Everything is encrypted, so it's very important to understand that it is encrypted in transit. And if you were to record those sessions, all of that data is recorded on the hard drive, and so it's encrypted in transit and encrypted at rest. The next one, just letting you know there's some counter abuse. So, I don't have to get deep here with you, but I want you to imagine that there's randomized numbers, and you can see just over here in the meeting ID, what those are randomizing. You cannot do a brute force, meaning you cannot guess these numbers and join a video session that you are not invited to. In fact, 15 minutes prior to the sessions, essentially the technology locks anybody from outside. If you were not invited, you will not be able to get in. But obviously you need to get business done. And so if you're in the middle of a session, I need to have another individual join, you were to send them the link and they were to try and access, we internally call it a knock. And what that does is it shows a banner that pops up and it says, Jeff Brown is trying to join this meeting. Do you accept or do you deny? So as the administrator, the leader of that session, I'm able to obviously allow them or deny them. There's several other tools in place there, but I'm going to move on. I just want to make sure you guys understand there's definitely the security tools in place. For anybody technical, if you've heard of certifications, FedRAMP Moderate, this solution is FedRAMP Moderate. You might be asking, is it data located? Yes. You might be saying, hey, there could be PHI. Do you guys have business associate BAAs? We do as well. All right, so I'm going to talk to this for just a minute so you understand. The scenario here, we're talking about Google Meet. And so, what we're seeing is you need to have a meeting, you need to have, your fellow legislators. What we're saying is you have up to 250 attendees. Google is offering, 90 plus days for zero charge, no profiteering, no commitment. We just want, legislators and government agencies to get up working remote. So I will show you how to get a hold of us if you want to leverage this solution. But up to 250 in any domain. So hopefully that makes sense, meaning I'm at google.com. And so if I want to invite anybody outside google.com, I can go up to 250. At any time, the top 5 participants are visible. People have heard of the Brady Bunch. There's another vendor that has that. It's funny how consumer drives engineering. That is now available as of, I think, yesterday. Google's now made that available in Google Meet. And a really interesting thing that we love is built in is real-time closed captioning. So for accessibility reasons, that's going to be really important. Outside the domain, I'm just going to move quickly here. This is, you can do 100, within the same domain. So within google.com, you can do up to 100,000 attendees. But I don't feel as legislators, that's not the fit. The fit is going to be the first one within 250. I have anybody who wants to join. And then we're going to talk about YouTube streaming here in just a second. I'm going to move quick through here just for time and just letting you know you can size the screen, you can present your screen, you can mute people, you can do all the blocking and tackling, if you will, everyone that you would expect from a high-class video solution. And I've already mentioned the adaptive layouts. And now I already mentioned closed captions. So let me go into the next one here, which is going to be recording the meetings. So this is the second biggest use case we see is you are having that legislative meeting. Maybe you're voting. We could talk about how you can do votes with Google Forms and those things. But at one point, you need to be, let's say, transparent. I need to now take that meeting we had. I want to record it, and then I want to post it. I want to make it available for public consumption. So if you rewind, and I showed you how you could record on Google Meet with the 250 users, what we're seeing legislators then do is they'll record it, and then they'll post it. And you might post it to your current web page or website that you have available, or you can then post it to YouTube. But this is probably the number 2 use case that we're seeing from legislators, again, recording the video session or the meeting, and then making it publicly available. So YouTube, look, I'll just talk about this. This is probably the, if you had top 3, this is going to be number 3. And so this is where I want to do a YouTube stream. This is potentially millions. And so if you have not created your own YouTube channel, I definitely recommend it. There is no fee for this. And so you guys will have these links available. And so there's all these tips and tricks about, setting this up and how to do it. A very important caveat I'll make is it does take 24 hours to activate the live streaming. So if you wanted to do one of these sessions, today at 5 o'clock, then unfortunately yesterday, at 4:55, you should have registered that. The good news is once you do it going forward, you're set. So I know there might be questions on YouTube streaming. You just simply type in Google, create your own Google YouTube channel. You're going to get a plethora of information. So fast forwarding through this, just know all these tips and tricks, pre-live, during, post, how do I take comments, how do I answer questions through streaming? But just to make sure people are clear, this is separate than the Google Meet technology. This is using YouTube. Great, and I think there's just one other links that you can look at. They really do provide some great content on how to set yourself up, how to prepare, all the different tips and tricks. Great, so I know we have 4 minutes left, so let me just leave these 2 links for you. I think the number one, suggestion I would make is the civics-outreach@google.com. That would be your first step. That is our public affairs team that can answer questions. Hey, I'd like to learn more about some of the offerings. And then feel free to contact myself as well. There's several Jeffs at Google, and so I have my name reversed there. So it's brownjeff@google.com. Great, guys. Appreciate your time.
Great, Jeff. Thank you so much. And thanks to all of you for joining us today. We do have a few minutes for a sort of a roundtable discussion here, and we want to get into that. Again, to mention that if you do have a quick question, you can enter it into the GoToWebinar interface. There's a pull down menu, and you can go into the questions box there and enter your question there. I've got a bunch of questions here, some of which have been sent to us by members, staff, or other folks. I wanted to ask first about something that is of great interest to obviously our CSG membership, and that is sort of the need to maintain the continuity of government during this challenging time, and how tech platforms can help make that possible. Nadir, you talked about a variety of services that state and local governments can take advantage of with AT&T. Ximena, you talked about constituent engagement. Jeff, your presentation talked about legislating remotely using Google Meet. But what do we know, either anecdotally or otherwise, about the degree to which governments are relying on technology to maintain the essential functions of government these days?
So this is Nadir. So anecdotally, I'll tell you that my team at AT&T, we have seen a tenfold increase in inbound requests. We only serve public sector customers from a machine-to-machine, IoT, advanced solutions portfolio perspective, the stuff that I talked about earlier on. And we've seen at least a tenfold increase from public sector customers, federal, state, local education, a lot in education, but across the gamut. So anecdotally, we've seen a lot of increase in requests for things like asset tracking, for being able to do remote connectivity for students that are staying at home and don't have Wi-Fi and might not have access to it. And the use cases just keep going on from there. But at least a tenfold increase that my team has seen from a public sector perspective.
Anybody else want to add to that?
Hey guys, Jeff, it's funny. I was going to say the exact same thing. It's 10x. So great number there. We're on the same page. And then same with product portfolios. Lots of Maps requests. A lot of people are trying to understand with those social distancing and using Google Maps, particularly in the government, how they can get individuals, healthcare workers, moving people from different locations and public transportations, as I mentioned earlier. But by far, video conferencing is the #1 10x that we're seeing. Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah, phone to action, we saw a tremendous increase since March 13, which was the day of the declaration of emergency. And March 21st was a Saturday. That was a day that in only 4 hours, we got about 400,000 people taking action. In the 24-hour period, we had over 1 million people taking action in one day. And that was a Saturday. It's been incredibly active for us. Some of our users are, the most affected, National Association of Restaurants or Airlines for America, Nurses Association, Emergency Physicians, etc. But what we see are organizations engaging members in a very large number of topics. So it's all COVID related, but not necessarily in the way that we may think. So there are people that are trying to keep their local businesses open, but there are folks that are trying to do different things. So we see also campaigns abroad that are from American companies, but overall the engagement is being incredible. We never seen this before, not even in 2016 after the election, which was another peak. And now that the federal activity kind of stopped, it's all state. It's all at state level. There is no one state that is not taking action. 52,000 people in average are taking action at the state level today. There are days that we have 100,000 people taking action, but it keeps growing up every day.
Great. Well, I think it's safe to say that the last few weeks have seen a massive and rapid increase in the volume of telework activity happening around the country and around the world. And I'm curious to know, if there are challenges that your companies have faced as the demand for your communications tools have ramped up. And I ask this in the context of, we've seen during this time, we've seen a platform like Zoom get sort of a bounce in publicity, but also a backlash as it became clear that maybe their encryption wasn't up to snuff. So without getting into the particulars of that company's issues, were there any lessons there for your companies in terms of, being prepared to respond in a crisis like this, but to make sure that your systems can be secure, that you're able to address issues that may come up and able to scale things up in a crisis and continue to offer a level of reliability of your services?
So from an AT&T perspective, I can talk to the network and then certainly FirstNet as well. So, this crisis has shifted traffic patterns and surged demand for a number of services that include obviously things like web conferencing, wireless calls, VPN access, especially. And through it all, our network, the stats that we see on a daily basis are performing really well. We continue to build out our 5G network, which currently reaches, about 120 million people in the country. And in the first quarter, we made our 5G service available to consumers across the country as well. FirstNet, this is specifically designed for situations where first responders need to be able to get access to a network, no matter how many consumers might be on it, right? So that is something that we've seen. The demand for that has increased significantly, but the network performance has delivered for our first responders. So I'm happy to report that as far as the carrier is concerned. And then when it comes to encryption services, there are certain requirements that we have for any of our partners that we redeploy or support. For us to be able to support, for example, a conferencing service or an asset tracking service or any of the other messaging services that we talked about, it has to pass a certain level of encryption, both at the device level, the network level, and then at the data center level, for us to make it available as a solution that we will resell or partner with or provide to our customers.
Yeah, this is Ximena. So I think what happened to some of these technologies that have been exposed lately because of vulnerabilities, I think the main takeaway is that if your technology is designed with security in mind, the volume is not going to affect in the way that some of these technologies are being affected. So it's a good reminder for technology companies to put security, to give security the importance that it has from the design point of view. At times, tech companies try to grow really quick and they forget that, and that's a big lesson to learn. Fortunately, at our company, security has always been a priority. We do a lot of integrations too, so we have to make sure that our partners are using top standards, and we do several vulnerability assessments a year, and we present those, the results to our customers. Thank God to now we never had an incident to report. They've been 8 years. I'm not good. You never know when it'll happen, but you generally, as a tech company, have to be positioned in a way that you protect your customers and the data that they give you. So my suggestion is, no matter how cool and fancy some things may come across, security trumps all of that, and you always want to find partners that can show you documentation that they haven't been, or they have a history of resolving the issues, or they're secure by design.
Great. So, we one of the other things that we've heard about in the last few weeks, we've heard a lot more about the digital divide and about the need to continue to expand broadband infrastructure to get 5G up and running, something Nadir mentioned. Has this crisis brought those things into even sharper focus and sort of pushed that agenda forward, do you think?
So broadband access has been an issue for U.S. constituents for a while, and making sure that it's not just available in large metro areas, but also in rural areas. That is why we've committed to making sure 5G is available to all consumers, starting off in the first quarter of this year, and we'll continue to expand that out. And then for anybody that needs to fall back to other higher data capacity networks from a wireless perspective, we have our 4G LTE network that's been up to the demand requirements, and we still support other 3G technologies as well. So the network has done what it needs to do, and we specifically in state and local government, we've seen a significant increase in the ability to, or the desire to be able to provide connectivity for students at home. So 40% of students in classrooms don't have access to Wi-Fi connectivity in the US today, and that's a concern. And being able to, the traditional approach has been to build out networks, wireline networks that will provide access to schools. But with some of the capacity that's available, some of the technologies that are available from a wireless perspective now, we're able to address that market significantly. We just announced, like I mentioned earlier on, a $10 million commitment to providing connectivity for school children around the country, and we will expand that as needed. But we're seeing a significant demand, especially for providing connectivity for students at home, to respond to just that challenge that you mentioned, Sean.
Mm-hmm. So lastly, I guess, everyone obviously hopes that one day we'll all be able to return to normal or some semblance of normal and be able to actually go into the office or to fly across the country to meet with other people. But what are the signs that you all are seeing that, telework and teleconferencing and video conferencing and all of these other communications tools are going to continue to be a bigger part of our reality even after the current crisis has subsided somewhat?
I think what I said before, that we were seeing signs of a different type of engagement from constituents, not just in the US, but across the globe since last year, and even a little bit before. In October of last year, there were people taking action in a very large number of countries. At some point, 65 million people were out there in the streets, protesting somewhere in the world. And all of them were organized through messengers. They were not, and some social media, but very little through in-person organizing, most of it done digitally. So I think the trend of people using technology to engage is being accelerated now with COVID. But what's happening is that people feel that the pressure to modernize the way lawmaking is happening is in the authorities now. So not just with the vote in Congress for the proxy vote, but in several other conversations across the country. I think it's important to take a look at what the future should look like, because if anything, we know is that COVID is changing the way that we live now and the way that we will live for the few years to come. Even if we go back to work in a month or even earlier, we will not be the same people for a while. We are all gonna be practicing different habits, and we're gonna be traveling in different ways. We're connecting in different ways, and for that matter, we're closer to the institutions. We're closer. We're more engaged members in civil society. So that's all good stuff. So I think what we have to do is just be proactive in the way that we want the future of engagement between lawmakers and citizens be, and have a vision for it and start working towards that vision before the constituents' pressure become too much, and we have reactionary approaches that are not good to have.
Great. Well, everybody, we are just about out of time for this afternoon. I want to thank you all for joining us for this great discussion. Thanks to Nathan and CTA for their support of this webinar and of our CSG policy work as well. Thanks to Joel Sams from the CSG communications team for recording today's webinar. For the Council of State Governments, I'm Sean Sloan in Lexington. Stay safe and be well, everybody.